There's another dynamic that's very common in this day and age, and that's that people don't always pass away where they live. Sometimes they're on vacation and God forbid an emergency happens. Sometimes they might travel just random parts of the year and have somewhat of a secondary home. Some families talk about, what happens, what's a scenario if something happens while I'm here. And some people don't have the chance to. The reason I want you to think about this dynamic is because the number one thing to remember is if you already have a relationship with a funeral home, or if you've even already prearranged with a funeral home, regardless of where the death happens, you only need to call that one funeral home that you are dealing with for most of the services. That means that your funeral home will be able to coordinate all of the details regardless of where someone passes away. This is really important to know because if you don't do this, you might end up spending way more money. You gotta remember, funeral homes, when I am called to coordinate a funeral and someone has passed on vacation out of the country, I am hiring the funeral home in that country or in that state as an agent funeral home. So we are negotiating trade rates. They know that I am the one that has the relationship with the family. They're not going to need to write an obituary, gather vital information. I'm literally, as a funeral director, I know exactly what they need to get their job done most efficiently, which is helping me serve the family that is my client. So I think it's really important and nobody ever talks about it. But on the flip side, say your grandmother dies in Puerto Rico and you know that she has her arrangements planned in Connecticut. If you go ahead and call a funeral home in Puerto Rico, you are automatically considered to be a client of theirs. They're going to charge you their full prices. And then you're going to call the funeral home here and they're going to be kind of secondary. So you're going to have a lot less coordination that you have control of and no language barrier for. And you're going to be dealing with being technically a customer to two different businesses instead of having one flagship coordinator, and that is the funeral home that you have the relationship with. Sometimes people live, say, half the year in Florida, half the year here. We've also coordinated with other funeral homes in Florida because sometimes they've also built a community and a life down in Florida. So we are able to make it so they can have somewhat of a service in both places. There are so many options. Literally, if you called a funeral home and said, we love the parades in Kansas, we want my grandmother to have her funeral there, but we don't live there, we would make that happen for you. Funeral homes will adapt to any need that you have. The problem is when you don't feel comfortable bringing up the needs that you have, the funeral home can't help you. So my goal in sharing all this crazy stuff is to arm you and empower you with exactly that.